Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome to Vision Idaho 2023. We're so excited to have you with us today. This is one we decided to do virtually, but we are live coming to you from Valiant Productions here in West Boise at the Boise Research Park. And the morning has been something more than challenging for all who have been out braving the elements. It's been exciting. Cars going every which way, and I came from East Boise to West Boise, and it was quite the challenge, but we're happy to be here today, and a lot of people will be joining us remotely. We have people that will be on stage with us today that are coming from here. Some came in from Denver, others came from the mountains towards Idaho City, and it's just going to be extraordinary today. So thank you all for joining us. We have a major focus today that's going to be talking about how Idaho is doing extremely well. I really have a vision with respect to applied research and development. And I can tell you that as you look around and you start identifying areas in our country and in the world that are doing extremely well, a foundational piece of that has to be where research and development takes place and how that research and development transfers from the ability to be able to have an idea, but where it's really meeting a customer's demand today, but more importantly into the future. It's a Wayne Gretzky thing where you skate to where the puck's going to be with respect to how you're meeting customers' demand, and it all comes back to how you're treating research and development. So I've got a few things that we're going to talk about here and introduce to you the Idaho Knowledge Report, which will be coming live through our website, idahotechcouncil.org. But here's what we're going to talk about, a little bit about that today. The first thing that I want to have you look at is there's a slide that was on here before here, and it had to do with a turtle. And it was a Hawaiian green sea turtle. And if you've ever seen these are just amazing animals. They are just fantastic, and this is it right here. And all these things live in a very, very delicate but really integrated ecosystem. And I was over in Hawaii, and when I was there on Kauai, there's Poipu Beach. If you've been there, raise your hand. All those around this in the deal. Have you ever been to Poipu Beach? It's an amazing beach. And on that, the people that were there were telling us that when pre-COVID, it's one of the most busy beaches around. This is the beach that I would tell you right here. This is it right here. And what had happened is it was because of all the activity, none of the green sea turtles would come to the beach anymore. And they would like to go, so they'd spend hours, down in the depths of the sea and do other places. And so they'd want to come to the beach to be able to warm up and be safe and be ready for the next day. But they stopped coming because there was activity that was on the beach that was not conducive for them being there. Well, COVID hits, right? And then what happens is that all of these sea turtles decide that there's no one there, and so maybe 5, 10 come on the beach. Now there's about 60 to 80 of these amazing sea turtles that you can see on the screen that are now coming to the beach. And what you'll see is that little orange light is a cone, and they cone that off at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon so people don't go and disrupt this ecosystem. So now I'm going to ask you the question. As we look throughout Idaho and we try to find what is differentiating Idaho, what ecosystem are we building? What are we doing? And today you're going to have the chance to be able to hear from a lot of different individuals who are going to share how they're disrupting or how they're creating new ideas through the research and development taking place. Several of them have implemented and built companies. Other ones are doing it through research institutions at universities. Other ones are doing it also through the Idaho National Lab and other areas. But I'm going to tell you, it's a key pivot point for us, and that's what the Idaho Knowledge Report is focused on, is this item. Let me share a couple more things about this. First of all, to accurately identify this, we got to sit there and just come back to a basic. The idea is, what's the purpose of a business? Well, it's easy, right? It's to create a customer. and to meet the needs of a customer. But the most important part of that is how do you meet it today and more importantly in the future, because if you don't meet it in the future, somebody else will, some other company will, and you'll be disrupted. The other part that comes in here is how do you meet a customer's demand? Well, it's simple, right? You have applied research and demand, you have part, but the part that's most unique about this is that you generally are creating new products. Sometimes you don't even know what they are, but you're doing it by the feedback and the data you're getting back from your customers and the other work you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about this. I was back in 2009. I went back to this amazing innovative conference that was back in Baltimore, Maryland. And at this one, the Kauffman Institute had this great report that they were putting out. And this report basically took all the 50 states and it compared the 50 states against each other with innovation. And it had 29 variables that it looked at. And out of those 29 variables, you can probably put about 7 to 8 of those that were around innovation and research and development. So the research and development was a key factor. And this person said, if you want to know areas that are going to be extraordinary in the future, look at the ones that are doing really amazing research today. And so that was a measuring stick that this individual used. This person actually came from Oregon, and I went up and talked to him afterwards, and I told him I was from Idaho. And he goes, oh, I love Idaho. And I said, well, why do you love Idaho? And he goes, because Idaho is positioned so well with the R&D that's taken place because of a Micron, because of HP, and there's going to be a lot of other companies that are going to come off of this. And he's right, because there are a lot of companies. We now have a middle market that's been generated in Idaho because of all these companies that are happening right now that have been successes from the 2000s. All the companies like Account, Cradlepoint, Clearwater, MW Animal Health, PetIQ, all of these companies, VisitPay, they're all coming, and they were all started in the early 2000s. All right, so he sits there and tells this. Now, the part that I thought was most compelling is he said, just take a look at simple factors like where R&D comes from and how we handle intellectual property, specifically around patents. So, well, the Idaho Knowledge Report this year, we'll talk a little bit about that. Let me show you some things. The first one I'm going to show you, and I'm sorry if you can't see this as well, so in this knowledge report, we're going to really talk about the future and how dependent we are on getting new ideas to market. And this is it right here. The first part that I want to let you know is that innovation and R&D is really alive and well. If you look at 1976, I'll just explain this one to you. 1976 is on the left axis. On the far right is 2021. And you're going to see that we actually go from having about 43 patents at that point to where today, or 2021, we've got almost 5,200 patents that are filing. And you'll see, as you see this chart, is that we are actually doing extraordinary things with respect to how we're how we're being awarded patents in Idaho. So I think that's really a good indication of how things are going. But let's take a little bit deeper dive into it. Now, this in the teal color is where all of the 6 economic regions in the state and where these patents are coming from. And it's intuitive. Everybody would know the majority of patents are going to come from the Region 3, which is the Treasure Valley, Boise area. But it's kind of interesting because out of those 5,200 patents, about 4,800 of those came from the greater Boise area, all right? Now, if you go deeper onto this is one that will tell you the blue line is Micron. The orange line are all other patents. So 90% of patents, 90% plus of patents that have been filed in the state of Idaho, where are they coming from? From Micron. So that's a big factor, which we go deeper dive. Let's take another look at this part. Let's compare ourselves to other states that are all the surrounding states, and you'll see that we're about the same with patents that have been filed during that whole period as Utah. Utah's got a lot more population than we do. You can see Washington's quite a bit higher. I'm sorry, it's Oregon that's the one that's the same as us, and we're about a third higher than Utah. But let's do it by population, and you'll see that we're punching above our weight class. We're doing extraordinarily well with patents, a lot of that. But again, Micron's a big part of that, but that fuels a lot of other ideation that's taken place in a lot of other places now, and we're seeing the fruits of a lot of that work now because of the work that's being done aggregate from our communities across the state. I wanted to tell you that, so this is the, so the other part that I will tell you also about this. If you take a look at all of the states that are like anywhere about 2 million people more than Idaho and below, Idaho is extraordinary. You'll see this in the Dill report, but Idaho is way above all these other ones with respect to patents. So Idaho has done very, very well with ideation that's taken place. And some other things you'll see about this report is that Idaho, again, is basically really outperforming its weight class and does extraordinarily well and is recognized as such. And there's a fantastic opportunity to how we're going to continue to grow assets that we already have here. And that's with the computing technologies, it's semiconductors, ag sciences, and I think we have a really opportunity in life sciences to do some other things with materials, and also energy is another area that we think that we can do a lot of good things. Let me tell you about the semiconductor deal. Yesterday I was at a semiconductor talent meeting over at Micron. And if you would take a look, year over year, the demand that's and the expectations we have and how quick things can turn, but this time last year, we anticipated that maybe the CHIPS Act was going to take place, and maybe there's going to be a major announcement about what's going to take place in Idaho with respect to Micron. Well, now we know it's a $15 billion investment that's going to be taking place between now and the end of this decade, and that there will be probably about 17,000 more individuals that will be required to be able to meet the demands from employment opportunities. So semiconductor is really going to be changing a lot. And the last part of this that we really want is the economic data really shows a strong economic and society metrics that you'll see from this. They're reinforced here. Idaho's on the right path, but we need to continue to focus on how R&D comes and continue to grow the assets in that space. All right, so that being said, I would really like to thank those who helped compile the Idaho Deal Flow report, all from Jason Stohlworthy from INL, also from INL is Hope Morrow, and Roger Hall is also another person you can hear from today. And it will just an extraordinary groups of people who have really helped us do all of these things. Our editor is Hope Swan from the from the Idaho Technology Council, so thank you, Hope. And the other ones I want to let you know is we really couldn't do all of these things without the help of a lot of sponsors that really come in on this. And thank you to all of our sponsors and the people who have come together with Idaho Department of Labor and the Idaho Department of Commerce with the work that's taken there. I see that a lot of people are on the call on this. And the last part that I would tell you is thanks to our sponsors, Idaho Central Credit Union, C308, INL, Stukent, and again, thank you to the Idaho Department of Commerce and Labor for their work on this. All right, so let's go on. We now have this great opportunity now to hear from the person that's from the Idaho National Laboratory, who is our chair of the Idaho Technology Council's Tech to Market Committee, and help us with all of this, and that's Jason Stohlworthy. He's coming to us from Idaho Falls at the Idaho National Laboratory. He wrote an article, it's called Idaho Innovation Starts with Culture. Jason, welcome to Vision Idaho. Can you hear me okay? Now,
yes, I can hear you, Jay. Thank you.
Awesome. I got this now. So you came in like this voice of an angelic voice. So thank you very much, Jason. Jason, thank you very much. And why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in the studio today. But as the chair of the Tech to Market Committee, I'm super excited to be part of this event. And as I've spent my career working in this area of innovation and technology transfer. Before I begin, I wanted to say just a tiny bit about INL. INL is really one of Idaho's greatest assets. We focus on innovation, research, and development in the areas of nuclear energy, national homeland security, and energy and environment. Every year, we create dozens of technologies that get transferred to private industry that create new commercial products and services, and we discover foundational high-tech discoveries that become a basis of next generation technologies. Next slide. So the mission of the Idaho Technology Council is to help technology companies in Idaho start, grow, and thrive. And the Tech to Market Committee specifically focuses on investments in the impact of industry public R&D, value creation and intellectual property awareness, and the development of healthy ecosystems environments to promote entrepreneurship in small businesses. I want to also highlight that Vid Mohamram is the Chief Intellectual Property Counsel at Simplot and co-chair of this effort with myself. Next slide. So what I want to start off why this whole effort is important and start off with the big picture. We've really learned a lot in the past century about what drives economic growth. One of 20th century's most famous economists, Robert Solow, won a Nobel Prize for his research that has led to the development of our modern theory of economic growth. His research lumped economic growth into two basic categories: technology progress and increasing of inputs from labor and capital. And so one of Solow's primary findings was that advances in technology accounted for more than 4/5 of the growth of the US economy. Increases in things like machinery, buildings, equipment, labor, all accounted for less than 1/5 of the US growth. His work showed that technological advancements have become the key to long-term economic growth for the United States. And specifically, he derived this equation that shows that our real GDP is equal to the technology advancements to the second power times capital to the 1/3 capital, or 1/3 power times labor to the 2/3 power, which kind of gives you an idea of which element is the most, impactful. Technology is an exponent where is exponential, where the others are less so. Paul Romer, another famous economist, also showed that diffusion is a critical step in achieving benefit from technological advances, which is the area that I focused my career on, is transferring technologies out of research into private industry and productizing those and creating services from them. So diffusion is a critical part of this, which is the elements consisting of having an innovative technology, communicating that through the right channels to members of particular technical fields, and then ensuring adoption over time. The second and third steps are really, achieved by technology transfer. Next slide. So as a long-term Idahoan, I wanted to, bring this home to Idaho. And I grew up on a potato farm, and Idaho farmers, I think, are some of the most innovative individuals. And technology has really transformed Idaho, farming in Idaho specifically. And I grew up on a potato farm in Shelley, Idaho, and it's fascinating to me just how much technology has changed in this area in my lifetime. But looking even back further, we see photos of people and how they used to gather potatoes with sacks and wagons. The farm that I grew up on was about 2,000 acres, and in the 1970s, it took about 20 people to run that farm and about 50 people to harvest it. Today, that same farm takes about a half FTE, or a half person, to run it, and maybe 5 or 6 people to harvest it. So, with this reduction in labor, one would think that technology would eliminate jobs. However, we all know the opposite really occurs for populations that are educated and well equipped to apply these technological advances. And so, all these friends, all my friends and family who grew up on these farms are now contributing in to the value of the economy in professional areas and technological areas. Next slide. So another thing that I wanted to highlight is just taking a look at this chart, which shows just how the world values have changed over the years in terms of intellectual asset versus tangible assets. You look in 1975, and 83% of the components, the value of the S&P 500 was on tangible assets. And you go to 2020, and only about 10% of the value of the S&P 500 is tangible assets. The rest is all, intellectual assets. And the reason I like to show this chart is I like to ask ourselves a question: are we thinking like it's 2020, or are you stuck in the 70s? Keeping in mind that 27% of job growth in the U.S. comes from intellectual property intensive industries, and 38% comes from intellectual property, or 38% of the U.S. GDP comes out of intellectual property. Just to probe some thought, I like to, ask how well do Idaho companies compare to other states when I ask questions like, how well do we, in general, know what our intellectual assets are? Do Idaho companies have well-developed strategies for developing intellectual assets? And how well does their IP stack up against their competitors? Next slide. Another factor that I wanted to kind of raise is just how important R&D has been on our lives. In this slide, I just wanted to highlight how many technologies in a cell phone came from publicly funded R&D. Institutions like INL and our research institutions in Idaho, our universities. Technologies such as GPS came out of the DoD and Navy. Fingerprint recognitions initially came out of NSF. Siri, the voice recognition on your iPhone, came out of DARPA funding. Cellular communication came out of the military. Touchscreen came out of DOE, CIA, and DoD. Internet came out of DARPA. And when you go deeper into the cell phone, things like lithium batteries, DRM cache, LCD, HTTP, HTML, all of those technologies originated initially out of publicly funded R&D. The next slide I wanted to talk about is how culture impacts performance and innovation. This is a DOE-funded project that I led, which is a first of its kind study that quantifies the importance of innovation cultures. With the support of two companies, we did this study. The companies' names were Innovation One and IdeaScale. We hypothesized that if we quantify the culture of 6 DOE national labs and compare the culture scores against standardized innovation metrics, a correlation would exist. And what's super interesting about the national labs is that we all operate under the same rules, basically. However, different contractors manage each of the labs. So the labs have very different cultures when you go from one lab to the next. Using a standardized method called the Innovation Culture Assessment Survey, we quantified the culture of each of the 6 national laboratories. Over 2,000 employees working at the national laboratories took these surveys. The survey asked questions like, we actively search for new ideas and innovations in all we do. Our organization has a coherent set of goals, and leadership communicates it regularly. My manager is a good sponsor of innovation. So the employees scored each of these questions in terms of the context of their work and their work environments. So on the x-axis of this chart, what you see is just how strong the innovation culture was scored at each institution. And what we found is that the cultures varied significantly among these 6 national laboratories. They ranged from, as you can see, in the 50s to up to the, above 75. And which is incredible when you really think about it. And on the y-axis, we specifically charted the performance of the labs in terms of the amount of innovations, commercial deployments, and partnerships with industry. And what this showed is that, the numbers correlate, and in fact, it correlate, the cultures correlate with performance in a surprisingly high confidence level. And even more interesting is culture scores, as we measured these, the results show it. Culture does impact performance. In fact, our research showed that if you improve your performance culture by 1 point on a 100-point scale, you can increase your innovation, commercial deployments, partnerships, and publications by a whopping 30%. So next slide. So really what the results of our studies showed is what the famous management guru Peter Drucker once said, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is, when you get culture right, everything else falls into place. The findings really provide some key insights into creating and nurturing innovative cultures at Dewey Labs, but really apply to any population. What the data suggests is that multiple-fold increases can be achieved by just focusing on your cultures. In fact, we estimate that the labs could achieve a 3-fold increase in innovation performance simply by focusing more and getting the innovation cultures right. So next slide. So another thing that our study evaluated is what were the top correlating factors when it comes to performance and innovation. And here's what we found is that the main factors are, 1, the degree to which leadership encourages innovation. 2, the degree to which researchers can recognize the value of their intellectual property. And 3, the degree to which processes are effective at capturing and securing intellectual property. And so next slide. So this is why we're here today. Innovation is important, and creating strong cultures of innovation is key to achieving greater innovation performance. Just as our study, reflected, the primary focus of ITC and the core focus of the Tech to Market Committee of ITC are these factors. 1, encouraging innovation, getting leaderships, behind and thinking about innovation, thinking about research, thinking about development and deployment, and encouraging it. It's why we're here today and why we hope the Vision Idaho and Idaho Knowledge Report raise awareness and the need to focus on encouraging innovation, creating value, and creating supportive environments for innovation. Next slide. So with this message, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Roger Hall. Roger is the author of DIY Brain, Staying Happy and Being Productive, the Big 10 Themes Successful People Do, and Expedition. He's a business psychologist with clients all over the world, and he says he has one trick, but I think it's a pretty awesome trick. He trains leaders to monitor and manage their thinking. So he consults and speaks all over across many different sectors. Rogers has his doctorate in psychology from Idaho State University, or Ohio State University, that's okay. And he and his wife just live outside the Boise area. So Roger.
I'm grateful to be here today. Again, I'm Dr. Roger Hall. I am a business psychologist, and my one trick is I train leaders to monitor and manage their thinking. My topic today, rather than go over the exact same thing I wrote about in the Idaho Knowledge Report, I'd encourage you to read that. I talk about what are the mindset, what are the factors in a person becoming creative, and what makes creativity come about. And there are 5 things. The first is expertise. Do you know the area? You cannot become creative unless you know the area. The second is reflection. And what I find in my work with innovators is that they need time for quiet reflection in order to come up with a good idea. The third is unusual combinations, which I talk more about in the Knowledge Report. The fourth is pressure. If there's no pressure, if there's no deadline, there's no reason to be creative. And the last thing is limits. That what I have seen is that when people are creative, it's because they have deep knowledge in an area and they innovate inside the limit of their area of expertise. And I want to spend a little time today talking about a couple corollaries and examples about those 5 things. And by way of background, I am the son of a scientist. My father was a professor of soil science at Ohio State. And so my house growing up was full of other scientists. So we had soil physicists and soil chemists. We had people from, I think, every continent on the planet except for Antarctica, though we had people who had visited Antarctica. There's not a lot of soil to study in Antarctica. So my household was filled with scientists. And if you're around enough scientists your whole life, you kind of assume the rest of the world is like them. And the title of my paper is about absent-minded professors and Fred Astaire. And the people who would come to our house were really absent-minded professors. Our backyard was filled with these scientists playing volleyball and lawn darts before they became illegal, and OSHA would swoop in and confiscate them. But we had these people in our backyard pretty much on a regular basis exchanging ideas while they're playing lawn darts and volleyball. So the 2 things I want to talk about, the first is related to expertise and reflection. And I am absolutely convinced that a little bit of boredom is absolutely necessary for creativity, for innovation, that you have to have a little bit of boredom. So when my son was in high school, he was learning to play guitar, and as he's learning, he comes to me and he says, "Pop, why is it that there are no more guitar gods in rock and roll?" He said, in the 1960s, you had Eric Clapton, you had Jimmy Page, you had Jeff Beck. He said, why is it that there are no more, guitar gods in rock and roll? Nobody does that. And I said, well, son, who of the people you know, who's the best guitarist? He says, well, Tyler is. And I said, okay, so on a Saturday afternoon, what can Tyler do? And he said, well, I don't know. He can watch a video, he can watch TV, he can get on the internet, he can play Xbox. There's lots of things he can do. And I said, okay, well, in 1959, when Eric Clapton was 15, living in Surrey, England, what could he do? And he says, I don't know. And I said, well, BBC was pretty much the only channel, and it was mostly just opera. And so Eric Clapton's not watching that. So there's really nothing to do except listen to records and play the guitar. I said, what we have now is an environment where there are so many distractions, there's so many activities that creative people can do instead of being bored. And the necessary ingredient for innovation is being bored and then going deep into your area of expertise. So back in the late 1950s, Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, they've got nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon, and it rains all the time in England, so they couldn't go outside. So what did they do? They listened to blues records and imitated those blues musicians so that they could come up with innovative ideas. And so one of the things I have found is one of the important things for people to be creative is time of quiet reflection and absolutely some boredom, where all of the media is taken away, where they're in some sort of isolation. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is unusual combinations. And what we find in innovative people is they put 2 things together that never went together before. And that unusual combination is where creativity comes from. Part of those unusual combinations come from the combining of different people's ideas. So if we go back to the music example, what we saw is guys like Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page were listening to blues musicians from the United States. And these are 2 guys in England across the pond. And so they're imitating these masters of blues and learning how to expand on what they've learned. So they seek inspiration from experts in an area and then innovate on it. They modify it. And so they bring together blues plus what they've got in England in terms of the sound that's coming out of England. And they fuse those things together for something completely brand new. And the boredom gives them deep knowledge. So it's first getting unusual combinations by looking at people in different areas and then collaborating with people around you to make it even better. And what we see is that, and let's change the topic here for a little bit. Let's look at comedians. Great comedians are really primarily great writers. They have some delivery, but they're first and foremost great writers. And what we see is that great comedy comes from a bunch of people coming together and blending their ideas and writing together. And so if you want an innovative system, it's taking people from different disciplines and bringing them together in order to come up with new ideas. And the more people innovate in an area, and here in Idaho, the more we innovate here in Idaho based on our expertise, taking new information from a different area, blending those in unusual combination, and then finding people who we respect, but are in a slightly different area. If we collaborate with those people, then we can come up with the brand new idea. Now, in my discipline, in psychology, also in the 1970s, two gentlemen came together named Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. And they were university professors in Israel. And if you read the book about them, and I strongly recommend the book, it's by Michael Lewis, who wrote The Blind Side, and he wrote The Big Short, and he wrote Moneyball. He also wrote a newer book called The Undoing Project, which talks about these two men and their creative collaboration. So in the 1970s, there they are in Israel. What are they doing to come up with all of this new thinking in decision science? Well, if you look at what they did is they went off into a conference room by themselves, and from all other observation around them, it looked like they were screwing around all afternoon, because as people would walk by the door, you'd hear them laughing and talking and giggling. And so all day long, it seemed like they were just horsing around doing nothing. But what they were doing is they were observing the behavior of people out in real life, and it didn't make sense, so they were trying to come up with theories, and they thought it was kind of hilarious. And so these two men, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, came together and came up with a whole new field called judgmental heuristics. And in 2000, Tversky passed away in the 1990s. In 2002, Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Economics for his application of what these guys were doing in that conference room. And from all outside appearances, were just horsing around doing nothing. They were coming up with the new ideas that would change decision science. And as we look at this, and our efficiency-minded selves look at the innovators and the creators, and we look at them and we think, those people are just screwing around, they're wasting our money. Well, that boredom and that collaboration and those unusual combinations looks for a long time like nothing's happening, but then pressure comes and then the great ideas flower. And so those are the two things I wanted to expand on today. What I want to leave you with is that Idaho, as we become more and more innovative, and we mix together things that didn't seem to go together before, and we build on our base of deep expertise, we can become another center for innovation. Now, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. Now I want to introduce Stu Draper, the founder and CEO of Stukent. And Stukent is a platform that allows for people to expand their new ideas in the digital space. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Hey, everyone. It's so good to be with you today. This is not a fake background. That's really what it looks like here in Idaho Falls today. We've had 2 days in a row of freezing fog, so the trees are all flocked like it's Christmas. I want to take a second and thank the Idaho Technology Council for what you guys do for our society, for what you do for our industries, and for how you connect people. It has been a privilege to be able to be over there in Boise in person and to address the audience there from time to time. Just real brief career journey I want to share with you, because I feel like it helps catch how I have done something innovative in Idaho. Didn't grow up here. I'm number 6 of 8 kids, grew up in Washington State, moved to Idaho for BYU Idaho. Loved my time there, and I'm one of the few and proud that decided to call Idaho home after graduation. And I think there's a lesson for us there. Great private institution that brings tens of thousands of students every year from all over the world, and we need to keep more of their talent here. As I search for talent as a business owner with now over 150 team members, I'm disappointed when I have to say, fine, we'll do this one remote because we have to recruit someone that has that skill set that's outside of the state. At BYU Idaho, I had the opportunity my senior year to do an internship with a company in Rexburg. It was a funded startup called Open Book, previously known as Yellowstone Hotel Systems. They went out of business. I was laid off of my first job out of college. This was 2008. There was a recession happening, and folks that had promised to keep funding the business backed out. Another great lesson for Idaho: funded businesses provide jobs, and providing capital, very important. And I'll share more about funded businesses later and my story of getting funding. Getting laid off was hard for me, but it was also the greatest blessing ever in my life. When life throws you lemons, make lemonade. I started my first business in Rexburg called GetFoundFirst.com. We became a Google Premier partner, and I started going to more networking events with that business. I met the leader of a company called Perfect Point Marketing out of Blackfoot, Idaho. Michael Johnson and I became good friends, did a lot of shared business together. Instead of looking at each other as competitors, we passed work to one another in our specialized areas of digital marketing. While I was running Get Found First, I had the opportunity to go back and teach at Brigham Young University, Idaho. Kent Lundeen asked me to come back and teach digital marketing. While I was teaching there, I kept banging my head against the wall that the curriculum was hard to work with. It was outdated, and there was no good hands-on learning project where I could assess the students' comprehension of everything that I was teaching them. And had that entrepreneur's aha moment, wow, there's got to be a better way. And when I looked online at what else was out there, and when I talked to professors about all over the country about how they were teaching digital marketing, none of them had a very good solution. So I called a friend that had, his name's Corey Smith. He sold Eastgate and Westgate drug in Idaho Falls to Walgreens. I said, Corey, you've been a mentor and friend of mine. You know a lot about business. I think I'm on to this idea. If I could get 100 students that'll pay $100 each at 100 schools, 100 times 100, Corey, times 100, 3 times of 100, right? That's $1 million opportunity. I'm going to go create a better way to teach digital marketing. So I sold my business, GetFoundFirst.com, to Michael Johnson that ran Perfect Point Marketing down in Blackfoot. He still runs that business today. It's now a 2-time Inc. 5000 honoree that does millions in annual sales. They support businesses all over the U.S. and have done very well with the business since I sold it to them. I went to my professor, Kent, and I said, Kent, I told Corey about my idea. He's excited. He'll give me funding. He'll help me start this business. You should join me and write the textbook that's going to help me get this business, Stukent, started. And Kent backed out, but I kept the name Kent in the name for our business. Because we're an education technology business, we call ourselves Stukent. It plays on the word student, and it's my name and his name concatenated. Corey not only gave me the first 25 grand to start Stukent, he said, hey, I'll help you and make some introductions for you to raise the rest of your money. At the time, there was an East Idaho Angel Fund that also helped me get off the ground. They gave us about 100 grand. In total, we raised $750,000. One of the reasons we needed money is because the seasonality of our business. You make money in January and you make money in September, only twice a year. My nature is to be a bootstrapper. I would much prefer to not take money from other people, but our business model was such that there was no other way. Thankfully, there was a great path to profitability and a great path to a return on investment for our investors. And I was able to help them see that a large part of my success comes from a good attorney and a good accountant that helped me in making sure I was raising money the right way. That $750,000 was all that the business needed to grow from zero to, we did just shy of 15 million in annual sales last year. Our business is valued north of $60 million now. The original investors, very first round, invested when it was worth $870,000. Okay. And I don't share that to toot my own horn as much as to say that there are opportunities right here in Eastern Idaho and in all of Idaho to raise money and start and grow technology businesses. I remember going to conferences in New York City, in the state of New York, I should say, not New York City proper, in DC, Texas, the Bay Area. And when I would say I was in California, they'd say, and when I would say I was in Idaho, geez, they would say, oh, potatoes. I thought that's all you guys did in Idaho, right? And yeah, I'd quickly say, you know what? They actually invented the internet to go all over the world. We have computers and internet in Idaho too. It's amazing. And I never let that slow me down from deciding to stay in Idaho. We grew out of the Rexburg office and there was no other office space that really fit us there. So we're down in Idaho Falls. And I would say a few things that have helped us grow as an ed tech business in Idaho. We did look elsewhere for talent originally. The first simulation developers I worked with, that's what Stukent does, by the way, is digital marketing simulations was our first simulation. Now we do a lot of others. But those first software engineers came from Romania. And I did make a trip out there with one of my business partners to meet them in person. We no longer work with that group, but and we have dozens of software engineers that are in Idaho Falls and other parts of the US now. So that's been helpful for us. Also, we bought a simulation company out of Texas, brought that technology here. It's a financial literacy simulation. I showed it to the now former CEO of Idaho Central Credit Union, Kent Orem. I met him at a networking event called RiseCon that was here in Eastern Idaho. Really excited to get Idaho technology doing more out here on this side of the state. And anyway, when I met Kent at that event and made a good relationship there, he said, yeah, I'll take a look at your simulation. Now, Idaho Central Credit Union is paying for the next, we were already 1 year into this, so 4 more years, Idaho Central Credit Union will be paying for every student in the state of Idaho to use our financial literacy simulation. That deal alone is greater than a $3 million donation from Idaho Central Credit Union. So they've stepped up big time to help make financial literacy education a part of high school, so that you're not waiting till later to learn about interest rates and buying your first house and buying your first car and managing a budget and paying taxes. We're taking care of that while they're in high school. If you want to learn more about that program, you can go check out this. I'll send a link here. I think this is something that you'll relate to and want to make sure that your local high school is participating. Valerie, I just chatted that. Looks like it went direct to you. So if you don't mind chatting that into everyone, that would be very helpful for me. I tell folks that join Stukent that what Under Armour was to Nike and Adidas, that's what Stukent is to Pearson and McGraw-Hill, our competitors. We have a why not us mentality that yes, the company that goes and changes education entirely can be from Idaho Falls, Idaho, with using education technology. And so I'm thankful to the folks at Idaho Technology Council for having me here today to share my story. And if there's time, love to answer any other questions. If we've got to run on to the next portion of the event, I'm just, again, happy for the time. Thanks for having me today, guys.
Well, if we can come to this one right now, CJ.
Nope.
So, hey, thank you so much. Stu, Draper, that was wonderful. What a great story, you guys, and a success story. Stu, I'm sorry we didn't have any time for any questions today, but we do know that life is well when you start looking at your Nike comparison with where you are with respect to the publishing and education side. And I love that you were wearing some Under Armour, so congratulations on that too. So anyway, so let's keep on going. Thank you, Stu, and thanks for that. I also want to let you know that if you look out here, we were going to have Dave Kaplan was going to be out here on the stage, but I think everybody here in Boise knows it's kind of like what Stu has in eastern Idaho right now. There's a ton of snow on the ground, so some people will be joining us virtually. So we get to now move on, thanks Stu, and we get to move on to Dave Kaplan, who's the Senior Director of Global IP Strategy at Micron Technology. And as we mentioned earlier, there's, I think Micron just crossed over their 50,000 patents that they've been awarded. And Dave is the person that really helps manage this whole IP portfolio. So Dave, thanks for joining us today. And we're going to turn it over to Dave Kaplan. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm David Kaplan. I'm actually the Vice President of Technology and Products in the legal department at Micron, and I'm here to talk about R&D. I've been in the semiconductor industry for nearly 35 years now, and I can definitively tell you that there has never been a more exciting time to be part of the semiconductor industry than right now. And there's never been a more exciting place to be than right here in Idaho. Because right here in Idaho, in our own backyard, in Boise, Idaho, Micron will be building a manufacturing facility that is like no other facility that has ever been built. This facility will be, in many ways, it will be the most technologically advanced facility that the world has ever seen. Okay, so we call it a fab. It's short for fabrication facility, and it's where we fabricate our semiconductor chips. Micron, you may have read the press releases on this. Micron will be investing $15 billion into this fab. The fab will be 600,000 square feet. So let me put that into context. 600,000 square feet. That is 10 football fields. You'll be able to put 10 football fields inside this building. And I'm not talking about office space here. Actually, most of the offices are going to be in a different building. This is mostly the manufacturing floor. And the ceiling of this manufacturing floor, these 10 football fields, will be nearly 3 stories high in order to fit the equipment in there that we'll be installing in order to manufacture our chips. So you got 10 football fields, 3 stories high, all to manufacture a product that's no bigger than your fingernail. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh yeah, all right, I've seen those videos, you know, the big giant factories, they got the rows of tables and the benches and, you know, hundreds of people sitting around there picking and placing electronic bits and pieces and soldering them to some board. Yeah. You know, like that, it's like that scene of all those people sitting in the factory looking for the golden ticket in Willy Wonka that the rich dude paid for. It's nothing like that. We'll be hiring a couple thousand people to operate this facility. And that's actually going to generate an additional 17,000 jobs in Idaho, which is awesome. but they don't actually get to go anywhere near the chips. We have to keep this massive 10 football field facility immaculately clean. Just the grease from someone's fingertip, or a speck of dust, or even a bacteria, a single bacteria can contaminate and destroy a semiconductor chip. That's how fragile these things are. If someone's out in the fab, they've got a runny nose and they sneeze on the chips, that event will cause millions of dollars in losses. So only the robots get to go anywhere near the actual chips, not only because robots don't have noses yet, but because they need to be able to operate in a vacuum in the dark, because air and even light itself can destroy an unprotected semiconductor chip. Pretty crazy, right? But it gets even crazier. There is the equipment that we'll be installing in this fab. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to describe to you just one piece of the thousands of pieces of equipment that we'll be installing in this fab. This piece of equipment is called an EUV scanner. EUV stands for extreme ultraviolet. And we use these machines because EUV scanners produce a special type of light that we need in order to create our chips. Because normal light, it's too thick to print the fine detail of our circuits. Yeah, at the atomic level, normal light is now too thick for us. The wavelengths are too wide. We've outgrown it. We're smaller than light. We need photons with smaller wavelengths. And these are photons that don't even exist on this planet. They don't exist in nature. We have to create them. So you might be thinking, okay, well, these machines, they print these tiny circuits on these tiny chips. Well, these machines must be pretty tiny. No, these machines are massive. In fact, these particular machines are one of the reasons why the ceiling in this 10 football field fab needs to be so high. Each one of these machines weighs over 200 tons and is the size of a small apartment. To get just one of these machines, just one of them, to Boise, it's going to take 3 747 jumbo cargo jets, 40 freight containers, and 20 trucks. This machine has over 100,000 parts sourced from over 8,000 different suppliers. So what's going on in this machine? Well, check it out. Inside this machine, there's a vacuum chamber. And attached to this vacuum chamber is this tiny gun that shoots a microscopic bullet made of tin into the chamber. And when this tin bullet, which is a fraction of the diameter of a human hair, when this tin bullet reaches the center of this chamber, a massive laser beam, powerful enough to cut steel, shoots that tin bullet, vaporizing it into a plasma that burns 40 times hotter than the surface of the sun. And when this happens, it releases this extreme ultraviolet light. And this whole sequence of events repeats itself thousands of times per second. Oh yeah. And we then use that extreme ultraviolet light that's generated by this explosion to print our circuits onto our chips. And using this process, we will be able to create circuits that are smaller than the width of a strand of DNA molecules. Smaller than the width of a strand of a DNA molecule. And that, my friends, is what's happening in Idaho. Okay, so let's talk about research and development. That's why I'm here. That piece of equipment that I just described, that piece of equipment is the result of 35 years and hundreds of billions of dollars of R&D invested by dozens of companies and government labs, Lawrence Livermore in California and Sandia Labs in New Mexico. I'm gonna digress just quickly here because Jason just mentioned it, and I'm gonna build on that because it's interesting. You may have seen a month ago a press release from Lawrence Livermore Labs. They announced that they had the first ever controlled fusion reaction, and they did it by shooting a microscopic ampule filled with isotopes of hydrogen into a vacuum chamber, shooting a laser at it to vaporize it to form a plasma that burns hotter than the sun. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Lawrence Livermore Labs actually designed that system into our EUV scanners. They have the most powerful lasers in the world. So in some respects, we're going to have little fusion reactors in our fabs. This is like Steven Spielberg science fiction stuff, but it's real. Anyway, without that kind of massive R&D investment, we would be technologically stuck, stagnant. Without these kinds of R&D investments, future generations will be watching their cute little cat videos on TikTok using cell phones that are about the same size and computing power as the cell phones we use today. We'd be stuck here. Now, I love cute cat videos, but like most of us, I'd like to see our technology continue to progress and maybe even used to help solve some of the world's problems like war and famine and cancer. And R&D is the fuel that will drive solutions to those problems. Now, this might surprise some of you. After oil at number 1 and airplanes at number 2, the third largest export from the United States is semiconductors. And the US, fortunately, currently has the largest share of the global semiconductor design market. We have nearly 50% of the worldwide market share. And that is more than twice the market share as the next country, which is Korea, at about 20%. And that is more than twice as much as the next country, which is Japan, at less than 10%. So how has the US been able to maintain this position in semiconductors? Is it because we invented semiconductors? Well, we invented a lot of stuff, as Jason mentioned. We created a lot of markets. But these are markets that unfortunately we no longer dominate. Digital imaging, which was born out of our space program, Jet Propulsion Labs in California. If you're into technology history, I encourage you to read about the development of digital imaging out of the Jet Propulsion Lab. It's an amazing story. Televisions, personal computers, solar technology, LED, the list goes on and on. Jason mentioned a bunch of them too. They were all invented in the United States, but those markets are now dominated by other countries. So what's different about semiconductors? Well, given that I'm here to talk about the importance of R&D, you can probably tell where this is headed. One might suggest that the difference here is that US semiconductor companies reinvest a greater percentage of their revenues back into R&D than the semiconductor companies of any other country. In fact, the amount that US semiconductor companies invest in R&D as a percentage of our sales, it's not only more than any other country, it's more than any other industry. And one might further argue that it's imperative that this virtuous cycle of semiconductor investment and semiconductor sales continue. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but our future, our health, our welfare, our defense, it's all being built on the foundation of semiconductors. AI and machine learning, telecommunications and DNA sequencing, edge computing, IoT. It's all built on semiconductor technology, on Micron technology. And that foundation right now is uniquely US based, and it needs to stay that way, and it needs to be protected. It's not just a matter of national pride, it's a matter of national security, and we can't surrender that. Okay, I don't have much time left. I want to switch gears very quickly, just a little bit, and talk briefly about the importance of patents to protect R&D investments. So Micron, yes, we invest a massive amount of money in R&D, and we are fortunate enough to have a world-class, world-renowned patent team to ensure that these technologies that are being developed by our brilliant engineers and our brilliant scientists are captured in our patent applications. Micron's not only a technology leader, we are a patent leader. But that's a subject for another discussion. For now, I just want to direct you to an awesome video that shows our journey, Micron's journey to 50,000 patents. Thanks to everyone for inviting me to this awesome event, and go Idaho.
Wow, that was awesome. I have to tell you, David Kaplan, thank you so much. I love the Go Idaho, and I love what was said. If I could just repeat one thing that you saw there, Micron's vision, transforming how the world uses information to enrich life for all. That was a fantastic, and the application of where semiconductors come and how they influence our daily life and our future is going to be measured by the success of Micron and the way that we hit this semiconductor industry. So the future is ours. Let's keep grabbing that. Now, let's go. Thanks everybody for being here. Now, it's a transitional point. We now have a $100 Apple gift card that's going to be sent to somebody out there that's watching this right now. So I'm going to do a spin the wheel. So I'm kind of a Vanna White type thing. Thank you very much. So right now I'm going to come over and we'll go ahead and spin the wheel. Let's hit it. Boom. Okay, it's a Jay Larsen. Is it Jay Larsen? Come on, come on, come on. Paul Kocialski. I got from Paul, congratulations. That's a very good thing. This is natural intelligence. That's a very big thing. So congratulations, Paul, for winning the $100 gift card courtesy of all of our sponsors in the Idaho Technology Council. So, all right, thanks. So let's just keep going now. Now we get the opportunity. We brought a patent expert in to talk about patent information. I'd like to welcome to the stage Molly Kowalski. I butchered that, I know, sorry, Molly. Molly is the Regional Director of the U.S. Patent Office for the Rocky Mountain region here out of Denver. And Molly also used to work for the Idaho National Laboratories, which is a cool thing. So let's welcome to the stage here, joining us from Denver, Molly, come on out. Let's hear it. Thanks, Molly.
Oh my God.
I know.
I think this is the first time that I've ever had smoke.
Well, it's a really cool thing. And what's really cool about that? You are now going to dazzle the audience. So.
I'm so excited about this.
All right, take it away, Molly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to Idaho Technology Council, Vision Idaho, for having the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office join you here. As Jay said, I'm Molly Kocialski. I'm the Regional Director of the Rocky Mountain U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that's located in Denver, Colorado. And one of the things that we're here to do is to walk with you on your IP journey. You've heard from Jay, you've heard from Micron, you've heard from everyone about the importance of patents to Idaho. But we actually like to talk about the entirety of your IP journey with you. So we encourage you to reach out to us. Please do. We do one-on-one consultations. We do lots of different presentations and seminars that are all about how to obtain intellectual property, how to enforce your intellectual property. I know one of the presentations that we did here several years ago was on China. So if you are exporting or doing business with China, we're there to support you, to give you information and education about intellectual property at any stage of your journey. And we encourage you to build a partnership with us, to create a relationship. As I was talking to Irene and Shannon from the SBA yesterday here in Idaho, we were talking about people that we'd met 6 years ago that are doing amazing and wonderful things and cheering them on. Or even talking to some of our friends like Marie at the SBDC to make sure that we're reaching out to people, because the question isn't whether or not you have intellectual property as you're building your business. You do, I guarantee that. And sorry, Brad, if I took one of your sayings away from you. But the question is, what do you have and how do you protect it? And that is one of the things that we are here to help you understand all of those things. And so I'm very excited actually to help introduce another tool that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office actually just released yesterday called IP Identifier. So it's IPIDENTIFIER.USPTO.gov. It's a series of 6 questions that will help you prepare for a meeting with an attorney, that will help you look at the things that you don't actually see as intellectual property in your business. And it will help you understand some of the things that you can do to protect those things. We are also always innovating. We really want to make sure that we're getting intellectual property assets into the hands of intellectual property owners at the earliest opportunity. So there are 2 programs that are going on. We did do a fast track program for COVID. That has ended. So if you had a COVID-related intellectual property idea, then we fast-tracked your patent for free. One of this administration's real focuses is climate. So we do have a climate change mitigation pilot program. Again, this is a fast-track application that you get for free if you meet certain technology classes. And you can find those technology classes in the Federal Register. But if it's clean tech, green tech, we want to know about it. The first 2 patents from that program issued in December, and we just started that program last April. So that tells you a little bit about how much and how fast those programs really are. The other program that we're doing that is going to be announced in the near future is a first-time filer program. So if you are that first time, you're filing your first patent, we recognize that you're entering into a process, you're entering into a journey, and we want to be there with you for that. So definitely reach out to us. We'll have all of the rules and everything like that that will be announced in the near term for that first-time filer program. But it's basically a fast-track application of your first patent for free. So those are just a little bit of the things that we're doing to innovate for you. We also want to hear from you about things that we can do better, things that we know we can implement and do to help support Idaho, to help support all the amazing innovation that's going on here. And I am super excited because one of our very good friends is following me. So if you take nothing else away from today, take away the notion that you can reach out to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and to me in particular, anytime, any place. We will be back in Idaho in May for Small Business Week, supporting our partners at SBA. But I know that Brad Frazer, who is a partner at Hawley Troxell, is going to be talking to you next. I always enjoy Brad's presentations, and I wish you were here. Brad, I'll turn it over to you.
There we go. I think we've got it now. Molly, thank you for that introduction, and it's always great to see you. I'm glad you made the trip over from Denver. It's great to hear your counsel. Molly and her team provide great resources to Idaho and the Intermountain West relative to intellectual property. It's my pleasure just to spend a few minutes with you today regarding copyright law. In this digital economy, copyright law is often overlooked and underused to protect the creative efforts in our digital economy. For example, copyright law is the best and perhaps the only tool to protect things like a Web3 environment, or a website, pictures and text, or the pictures and text within the gameplay of a video game, or the content of your SaaS implementation, or, for example, the source code that runs ChatGPT or any other AI implementation. All of those things are by definition copyright law constructs, and they're best protected using copyright law. And so oftentimes patent law is looked upon as the big hammer in intellectual property, and it's true. But because of recent Supreme Court decisions, it's very difficult to get patents on many of these software implementations. And so my invitation this morning is to remember copyright law as your best friend if you are a creator, if you write source code, if you take pictures, if you create Web3 environments, if you take photographs or write text. And I know all of you do. All of you in each of your various enterprises have copyright law constructs. And so I will just leave you with two bits of advice relative to protecting your copyrights, given that patents are very difficult to obtain on some of these constructs and other forms of law just don't simply apply. The first bit of advice that I'll leave you with is to make sure, number one, that you own your copyrights. It's remarkable to me how often when I ask a client to demonstrate to me that they actually own their copyrights, they cannot make that demonstration because the ownership laws relative to copyright are subtle. And the second thing is, in addition to making sure you own your copyrights, the second bit of advice I'll leave you with today is to make sure that you register your copyrights before you place anything on the internet or give a copy away. So please make sure you own your copyrights, and please make sure you register them with the United States Copyright Office before you make them publicly available. Registration is now required in the United States to be able to enforce a copyright. So you may own it, but if you want to have a remedy to stop someone from stealing it in court, then I would advise you to quickly register the copyright before that work is made public. So thank you for your attention this morning. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Marty Blair, the Vice President for Research at Idaho State University. Dr. Blair, please, over to you.
All right. Good morning. It's good to see you all. Thank you all very much for your time today. This has been a very invigorating opportunity for me, and I hope it has been for you just to learn about what we're doing here. I am Marty Blair, as was said, the Vice President for Research at Idaho State University. I'm relatively new here, and I'm here to just speak very briefly about the outlook for research at Idaho State University. It is very bright. Sometimes I feel like we are looking into the sun. It's so bright. There are so many wonderful opportunities for all of us, not just at Idaho State University, but in the state of Idaho and in our region. People often ask, what drives us at Idaho State University? Really, it's about expanding knowledge and making discoveries that positively impact the quality of life. I've heard that from others who have talked earlier today. We have over 150 active researchers across 5 campuses. People may not realize that we do have 5 campuses. Our base campus in Pocatello. We also have a campus in Idaho Falls, a health science center campus in Meridian. We have a small campus in Twin Falls, and we also have a pharmacy program that's expanding in collaboration with the University of Alaska in Anchorage. So we actually are across state lines, and we're very, very happy for that. This last year, we had just over $30 million in research awards. Now, that may be fairly small in comparison to the other research institutions here in our state, but ISU is exceeding that number this year, and we are on track to continue to exceed that number. We have strategies for continued growth. I think it was Stu Draper that said something earlier about people come here to go to school and then go away. My colleagues and I, who you'll hear from here in a moment, my other VPR colleagues from the other universities, we have been talking about ways in which we can make Idaho a research destination, a place where people can come and want to stay, where they can share their ideas, where they can grow their businesses. We want this, and we've got some great examples of that already, but we believe that we can do even better. And that comes through collaborations and partnerships, much of which we are talking about today. That's what's so exciting. In fact, I'm leaving this meeting here to go next door to a meeting with ISU colleagues from Idaho State University and colleagues from Boise State University to talk about food and dairy innovation. That's just one example of ways in which we are growing our partnerships. I realize as I look at this slide, we want people to come to Idaho and stay here. And then the next slide with the next picture with the country there, I know that looks like the thing from Stranger Things or some spider. That's not really what it is. That's meant to show that we want to export our ideas, export industry. We don't want to necessarily export our people. We want people to come and stay and build their businesses and their ideas here. Idaho State University, we are really focused on 4 areas. This is clean and secure energy. That's something we have done for many, many years. We have here at Idaho State University's unique resources. We have a low power nuclear reactor. Many people don't know that. We're one of only a handful of universities in the entire United States that have that resource and a license to continue to use that reactor and those facilities for the next 10 years. That license was just renewed. And a low to medium energy particle accelerator. We are in the same company as universities like University of New Mexico, Texas A&M, and many others. Cyber secure systems, that's something that we're interested in. We realize that cybersecurity has 2 parts. There's the hackers and the people that write the code, but also systems and control systems. We are one of the only, in fact, I think we are the only university in the United States that can take people from an associate's degree through PhD in the nuclear energy and cybersecurity space. And that's something that's unique to us. Biomedical and health sciences is another area of capacity and expertise and growth for us. Looking at issues of rare cancers, sarcomas, staph infections, things that really impact that impact our society, that impact the health of our society. Nuclear medicine is an area that we are doing quite a bit of work in with partners from around the world. Holographic telehealth technology focusing on rural health, disaster response and resilience, microbial fuel cells, et cetera. That's all part of what we're doing. Really, to go back to this, the 4 areas: clean and secure energy, cyber secure systems, biomedical and health sciences, and environmental sustainability and resilience. Just look at where we live in this beautiful part of the country and beautiful part of the world. We have great opportunities and we have great expertise in being good stewards and conducting research on environmental and ecological issues that we face. We have a location advantage, I think. Idaho State University certainly is adjacent to or close to Idaho National Laboratory, which is a great partner for us. We along with our other university partners, collaborate to operate the Center for Advanced Energy Studies. We have our medical sciences campus. Idaho State University is designated as the health science campus, health science university for the state of Idaho, with campuses in Pocatello, our main campus, and Meridian with our health science center. If you haven't visited there, you need to. We have a location advantage. Finally, I know I'm talking very fast because our time is limited. But the thing that we are focused on at Idaho State University is developing research neighborhoods. This is just a listing of our colleges and our schools. But our focus is to develop research neighborhoods across our campuses, across universities, and across our region, bringing together people to collaborate to create solutions that we are facing in health, in medicine, in energy, and in our environmental sustainability. We support collaborative, overlapping partnerships that improve and enhance and support students in real-world problem solving, but also are striving to do so in collaboration with our business and industry partners. I would call your attention to the a brief report that was written, the Idaho Knowledge Report. I have a lot more information about our resources and the things that we are doing at Idaho State University. I know we don't have time for questions, but I would invite you to reach out to me. This is my direct email or the Office for Research email. Would invite you to reach out to me if you at a university or a business and industry are interested in partnering with or exploring some of the opportunities that we might be able to engage in together. Please reach out. We look forward to connecting with you and working with you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Nancy Glenn. She is the Vice President of Research and Economic Development of Boise State University. Nancy has extensive research, operations, and management experience from legislative engagement and managing the research enterprise at Boise State University to serving as an active researcher for over 20 years. So with that, please welcome Dr. Nancy Glenn.
Thanks, Marty. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here with you all. We have an awesome crowd, it looks like, all together here. And so I'd like to give a big shout out to ITC for organizing this event and inviting the universities. And I think that we all know this, but I want to just re-emphasize that really universities are the lifeblood of the basis of Idaho and providing that workforce and technology and innovation across Idaho. And we heard a little bit about that earlier this morning, as well as from Marty in this last talk. So I'm excited here to talk a little bit about Boise State and more broadly about higher education in Idaho. So first and foremost, I want to point out that higher ed across Idaho, no matter what the institution, but collectively, together, we provide about $4.5 billion in gross state product annually. I mean, this is a huge impact to the state. And so we're interested in continuing that, of course, and growing that for the state of Idaho and for the region. Specifically at Boise State, our contribution to the technology and innovation ecosystem really is the workforce development with 26,000 students at Boise State each year. And about 60% of those end up staying in the Treasure Valley 5 years post-graduation. And for our portion of contributing to the Idaho economy, we're close to $2 billion on the state of Idaho's economy. And so really, as I mentioned at the very beginning, really the lifeblood and one stream of opportunity for that workforce development and that innovation to contribute to the ecosystem here in Idaho. In addition, like many universities across the state, we have an active research portfolio at Boise State. I wanted to call your attention to a couple things in this slide. First and foremost is that we hit a record $68 million in awards this past year around research at Boise State. And many of that was in conjunction with partners that are on the call here today, all across campus, across all of our colleges and units, with our universities, other universities within the state of Idaho, as well as with universities in the surrounding states. As part of this growth in research, we're really trying to develop new industry and community-friendly models to bring industry into campus and to bring our faculty and students outside of campus to the state. And so we spent a lot of time in developing a new intellectual property and tech transfer model that hopefully is you all will, or industry will find is more friendly than what we've been able to do in the past. So we're super excited about that. Another area that I wanted to share is that we've launched on 2 areas of grand challenges. And I'll talk about what a grand challenge is here in the next slide. So grand challenges are about bringing our pocket pockets of excellence, our areas of excellence in research together with other groups across campus, as well as with community and industry partners off of campus to solve complex problems. So they're ambitious, they're going after large problems, they're transdisciplinary, and they're industry and community driven. So we just recently had an event at JUMP. Many of you were probably there. We had over 200 folks from the community to celebrate our resource nexus for sustainability, which is really about building more resilient and sustainable urban and rural systems, and building that community of practitioners outside of the university building that relationship between our community of scholars on campus with our practitioners off of campus. And of course, this is really spearheading off of Boise State's position as one of the top 50 colleges and universities named for innovation in the U.S. News and World Report, of taking that next step and how can we really build that out across the state. The second grand challenge that we've launched is Healthy Idaho, and this is intentionally broad about improving the physical and social conditions to foster healthy and thriving communities in Idaho. 2 projects have been awarded where we're focusing on areas that I think resonate with all of us. First and foremost, that's wildfire smoke. What are the health conditions? What are the policies? What are the economics associated with that? And so we have faculty and health institutions in Idaho participating on this together to look at that. We also have a project on preventing violent extremism through public health resiliency, and this is really focused again across the university and with our partner institutions in Idaho to look at substance abuse and mental health and how that plays a role and what can we do to be more preventative around violent extremism. So those are 2 areas of grand challenges where Boise State is going, engaging the Idaho community. We have a lot of activities happening on campus, but I thought I would just highlight 2 others that are really focused around advanced manufacturing. The first is the Food and Dairy Innovation Center, which has spearheaded out of our chemistry department over the last few years, with a long history in food safety and processing technologies. And this is really an exciting opportunity to bring engineering and the sciences together, fusing artificial intelligence with chemometric sensing, for example, to really produce better and advanced manufacturing. And so this work is an interdisciplinary model similar to what I talked about with the grand challenges that has some traditional funding partners like the National Science Foundation, but also industry partners here in Idaho. And thank you also to IGEM as well as Department of Commerce and Department of Ag for supporting this focus. Also associated with advanced manufacturing, we have a significant effort that is emerging in advanced materials and manufacturing, and this is very widespread, from biomanufacturing, biofilms, printable wearables, printable film, smart manufacturing, semiconductors, as well as materials characterization, which is steeped in Boise State long history in materials, as well as additive manufacturing for extreme environments. And you heard Marty already talk about the university's participation coming together in the Center for Advanced Energy Studies, where some of this work takes place. But what's really exciting, again, is this focus on interdisciplinary work and partnership with industry. So we have folks working in our College of Business, our College of Engineering, Education, our College of Arts and Sciences, working with industry off campus in all of these areas. I'm going to end with 2 programs that we have at the university that are really statewide opportunities for all to participate in. This is really an opportunity to, again, provide a jump start and continue to advance our technology and innovation ecosystem here in Idaho. One is the Venture College, which is run out of our College of Innovation and Design. And these are just some numbers of the Venture College in this past year. What we found in a review of our impact is that today we have 289 active businesses that were spurred out of the Venture College. Over 300 participants. We had about $20 million in revenue generated from from those active businesses and in our participants, as well as over $4 million in capital raised as part of the efforts in Venture College. What's really exciting about Venture College is that it's student-based, but there's opportunities for those partnerships for industry, community, public, faculty to collaborate with those students and really make great things happen. The second program that I wanted to bring up is a program that's funded by the National Science Foundation called the Innovation Corps, or I-Corps. And this program provides entrepreneurial training to teams of researchers. And what's exciting about this is that the teams of researchers don't have to be just what you would think of a traditional faculty team at the universities. These can be teams of researchers all across Idaho, whether they're in industry, whether they're at the universities, whether they're students or mentors. And the idea is really to explore commercial potential of a platform or a research or an innovation, an idea that team may have. So the I-Corps uses the lean launchpad approach to connect with potential customers, to help with marketing, to assess commercialization, et cetera, and really provide that support. And there are about 3 or 4 week programs for these cohorts. And if you can see the orange dots in the map, we were just awarded as part of the Desert Pacific Hub. So you can see Idaho going all the way through Nevada, Southern California, Arizona, and Hawaii. And so it's a team to be able to collaborate and educate across those states. University of Idaho and Boise State are part of this, but I think Idaho State is going to join here in the next, hopefully in the next year or so. And that also, I guess I would say, doesn't preclude just because you only see 2 orange dots. Again, anyone from Idaho can participate by contacting University of Idaho or Boise State about this. So it's not exclusive to the 2 institutions. So I'll stop there. I want to say thank you for your time and attention. We have lots going on at Boise State. We work very closely with the other institutions, the other universities in the state. So if you're thinking about collaborating with us, please do reach out. My email is there. Please do be in contact. And I hope I've given you a little bit of flavor of what's happening at Boise State and where we're going. So thank you so much. I now have the pleasure of introducing Archibald, or Arch Harner, Assistant Vice President, Research Administrator at the University of Idaho, who will talk about how the University of Idaho supports Idaho's ability to come up with new ideas, products, and services. So Arch, over to you.
Thank you very much. So she stated my question there is, how does U of I support Idaho's ability to come up with new ideas, products, and services? And it got me thinking about, you know, something that I do. I don't know if many of you do it too. So maybe I should admit this. So I'm reading the news and I hear about a successful Idaho company or a new deal involving the state of Idaho, or I see someone's running for office or leadership of a company, and I'll Google them and I'll go to their LinkedIn page and I look for some connection to the University of Idaho. And oftentimes, or you even see oftentimes there's going to be some connection, either a degree from there or they work with someone from there. There's some connection to the University of Idaho, or you'll see Boise State or Idaho State or some other state of Idaho university. And I look at that as, that means this university system here in the state of Idaho is successful. We had some impact. It's indirect, but whatever that success was has some connection to the university system. So, that question that's been posed for us, like how does the University of Idaho support Idaho's ability to come up with ideas? So when we think of what is Idaho, I'm brainstorming this over the last couple of days, what is Idaho? It's a concept, right? But it's the citizens of Idaho. It's the students who go to the schools here. It's the companies, it's the communities, it's the industry here in the state of Idaho. That is Idaho. So the question is, how does University of Idaho support those groups? And I'm an administrator. I'm here for Chris Namura. He's the vice president of research. He's a researcher. He's also oversees the research program. My job is to oversee the administration of that research, which is sponsored programs, which for those who aren't too familiar with universities oversees proposal submissions and award processing and the compliance with the federal and state rules surrounding those awards. We also oversee research assurances, which is making sure that animals used in research, biohazards, human subjects of research, and other things are properly not only just comply with federal rules that surround those research programs, but also to make sure that there's not any inappropriate exploitation of those resources. And then tech transfer, which is sort of what we're talking about today, which is helping researchers take their ideas, turn them into protectable discoveries that can be commercialized. So my perspective that I try to bring today is, how do we do that administration-wise? Well, we try to create an environment where that facilitates the generation of those ideas. And that means it could be literally helping oversee the management of the facilities, trying to make sure we hire the right people to bring the right expertise to the university. Other administrators try to recruit more students to make sure we're meeting the needs of the state of Idaho, but getting the right people here to study in the right programs that can benefit the state of Idaho. The extension programs, taking ideas that have developed here at Idaho and taking them out to the field all throughout the state of Idaho. And classroom education, helping people learn to become critical thinkers. So on that administration angle, the University of Idaho, on average, has expended $110 million or more per year on research, which is what that really means is we take Idaho resources, and then our faculty here will propose research, to the federal government, to state agencies, to industry, and seek sponsorships. We'll be able to take Idaho resources and augment those with the resources of the federal government, our industry in Idaho, and others. And the hope is that they will produce the dividends. Some of the dividends will be exposure to the research process for students, exposure to some of these industries that they wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to. Another dividend could be the very inventions themselves. So a lot of the focus we have is on the inventions. So the hope is that this research will result in, and the way we protect the IP at the university is through copyright, but also through patents rather than trade secrets. We use patents. And then we'll have a portfolio of this technology that we're able, through the Tech Transfer Office, to promote. Now, I heard Dr. Glenn mentioned the ICO program. We're a part of that. That's part of that, taking some of these existing technologies and building teams around them and training those people. So hopefully that leads to startups. But back to that LinkedIn idea, another way we have impact is difficult to measure is just simply that exposure to research. So you have students who come to the University of Idaho who get to be involved, even as undergrad or graduate students, with major research projects that are sponsored by the federal government or by industry. And whether they invent something now, they at least are exposed now to the research process. They're learning critical thinking from the investigators involved in the research, or the connections they make with industry. And then they get their degree, and then they move on. And the hope is, indirectly, the University of Idaho has used its existing resources from the state, augmented with additional federal, state, and industry funding, to provide these experiences for students that they can take out and keep here in Idaho to lead to further innovation. So maybe not first order, but second, third order innovation that has been impacted by the programs of the University of Idaho. That's in addition to the standard tech transfer function, which is taking taking patented IP and turning that into some commercial success. So that lifeblood comment of Dr. Glenn is correct. The lifeblood is we're teaching people to be innovators, and we're also and then to speak to what Dr. Blair had mentioned, we're taking those ideas, hopefully turning them into commercial success, which leads to, Dr. Glenn, I'm sorry, or the commercial success, which leads to reinvestment in terms of the royalties that are generated from that, reinvestment into further research that benefits the state of Idaho. So See, I have limited amount of time. I want to keep it short, but appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you very much. I'd like to next introduce Zach Adams. He's the CEO and co-founder of Pitch Aeronautics. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi there, sir. I'm Zach Adams, CEO and co-founder of Pitch Aeronautics, and I'm coming to you from the Idaho National Laboratories Industry Days. Excited to talk to you a little bit about our company and some of the challenges that occur for hard technology startups in Idaho. So if you can see on this first slide here, there's many tasks out in industry, particularly on transmission and distribution lines, where guys climb ropes and hang off helicopters to install small components or do other maintenance and installation tasks. This is really dangerous and expensive. And while I think industry thought that drones would come along and solve some of these problems, they really can't stay in exactly the same inch of sky required to perform these types of touch-based and installation tasks. That's why, if you go to the next slide here, we've built this drone, which we're showing off at the conference, specifically for these installation and maintenance tasks. We can put a 5 to 25 pound payload way out on this arm and keep it in exactly the same inch of sky that's touching a power line or a bridge, using a series of technologies, including this patented propeller for rapid thrust vectoring that allows us to compensate for variations in the wind. If you go to the next slide, this isn't just theory. We've already built, demonstrated, and flown this drone in up-close tasks. And we have even done some demonstrations of installations. Next, we're going forward towards our commercial applications. Now, while you can imagine such a platform doing any up-close or touch-based task like painting or spraying, we're concentrating initially on the transmission and distribution industry. We're installing small components, that is, if you go to the next slide, such as bird diverters that have to go onto live transmission lines. These components are today installed by people literally hanging off the side of a helicopter. We've, in conjunction with Boise State University and power engineers, have developed a new payload arm for our drone so that we can clip different bird diverters to the line without having to send somebody out on a helicopter. And if you go to the next slide, this is just the start of many other installation, maintenance, and up-close and touch-based tasks that we can do with a platform like this. If you go to the next slide, I know one of the major emphasis items of this presentations today is around IP and patents. And in order to attract investment, both on grants and in private investment, we have obtained patents to protect our technology, our hard technology. So we have a patent awarded on our cyclorotor and a non-provisional patent pending on our drone configuration. That includes our ability to put a payload up close and touch next to an object. Patents are obviously expensive, so the way a small startup like us was able to pull it off was to find an attorney that coached us through writing the bulk of the information, and we relied on the attorney to do the claims, the important legal aspects of the patent, and working with the examiner to get those approved. That's very important for our success. So how do we get here today? We had to lean a lot on Idaho. So if you go to the next slide, our funding timeline is essentially we were able to obtain about $30,000 of friends and family money. And then with Boise State, we went after and we're able to achieve we're awarded a IGEM, that's the Idaho Grant for Global Entrepreneurial Mission, to several IGEM grants to a tune of about $400,000. That allowed us to work with students and faculty at Boise State University alongside our company to commercialize and develop this entire drone prototype and do some initial demonstrations of the platform. Next, we were able to leverage that prototype and those initial demonstrations to do a seed round, a pre-seed round, where in November we closed another $410,000 to bring this to our first initial commercial applications. Going forward, we've already applied for many federal SBIR grants, SBIR grants, and we'll also need to bring on more private equity investment to take a very hard technology like this to make a big impact on the world and become one of Idaho's bigger businesses. That brings me to the next slide here with the challenges that a startup like ours has in Idaho as a hardware technology company, and things that we can keep in mind as a state to grow these types of industries in Boise. The first is that we've been very reliant and very fortunate to work extensively with Boise State University, faculty, staff, and graduate students. If we can continue to incubate this fundamental research, this can allow us to take that technology and stay at the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of what is possible on the commercial market. Without reliance on that advanced research, this would be completely impossible. So I'd love to see further growth of the graduate and postdoctoral research programs at our major state universities in Idaho. Next is we need to maintain and recruit advanced engineers. Unfortunately, we lost an engineer that was bought off by a California company for more than twice the salary that we could afford to pay her. In Idaho, we need to keep maintaining incentives for these high technology engineers to stay here and come here and also build them from our in-state institutions. Finally is access to capital. We could not have done this without the Idaho iGEM grant. And as we move forward, we know that we're going to need further risk reduction through federal SBIR grants, as well as large-scale private equity investment. That's why we'd love to see encouragement of the state from both private and government institutions to bring more federal grant money into the state and incentivize venture capital and other capital firms to invest in high technology companies in Idaho. Me and many of the other companies in the state have some great technologies, and we're really excited to bring them forward and show the United States and world what Idaho can represent. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the time and introduce your next person on the call here. That's Trent Clawson. Trent is the president and chief engineer of TitanPower, and he's going to speak a little bit on how innovation causes disruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. So just a business thing, Zach, we build batteries for drones. So let's talk after. So yeah, my name is Trent Clawson. I'm the president and CEO and chief engineer here at Titan and at Uno. And we build batteries for all sorts of applications. Just a quick preview. We build batteries for airsoft rifles. We also build batteries for larger applications. Like this is a battery array that we might put into like a flight module, for example. And our more recent business opportunity that we're pursuing is Uno. This is a little heavier, but this one battery weighs about 48 pounds, and it will run a golf cart. It'll take the 6 lead acids out of a golf cart, which weigh just over 300 to 400 pounds. And instead of driving at 30 miles, this one will drive at 60. So we're just super excited to be making progress here in Southeast Idaho. We're in Pocatello, Idaho. So I just want to talk quickly about innovation, what we do here at our company, and what we've experienced recently. So, over the last couple of years, like all of you, the pandemic feels like it has really kicked off a series of things that have impacted our business in so many ways. The government's social and fiscal response to the pandemic has also affected our customers and our trade relations with our international partners. And that has really affected us acquiring some of the raw materials that we use to manufacture our batteries and just our customers that we would transport these to throughout the world. And then more recently, these macro effects like inflation, some investment markets that are down recently, and just consumer confidence. All of these things have really just changed. It feels like the landscape of our customers and where how we can get our product to those customers. And so in these situations, we kind of ask the question could be asked, who survives and who thrives in these kind of conditions? And during this time, we've actually seen competition or partners fail during these challenges. And so in reflection, we ask the question, who survives this? It's not the strongest, the smartest, or the fastest that survives. It truly is the companies that are the most adaptable. And so how do we, as all of us and here at our company, how do we maintain that adaptability and so we can survive this challenge that we're going through? And of course, the challenges that are certainly going to come. For us is we're always willing and able to, we see our products and our services as fluid, meaning that we're always willing to change and adapt as needed. Internally also, even our processes here, they have to fight to justify their existence and those policies, why those should be the way they are, always challenging those and making sure that they can continue to add value like they intended to be. And then we have this saying, we're only doing it this way because we don't know a better way yet. There's the humility in that we're constantly evolving and adapting. And as soon as a new or a better idea comes up, we're going to happily switch to that as quickly as possible. And then just another principle is we're trying to make ourselves less wrong each day. Because again, that humility, knowing that not everything's perfect, we can be better. And that's something we're constantly striving to identify those and change them. So other ideas that we do here is we just maintain a very healthy tolerance and appetite for innovation and disruption. And so when internal things happen, like we want to change or improve our product, or an external factor comes in, like maybe shifting consumer confidence that disrupts our to-market strategy, with that constant innovation and change, when we need to make those changes, it's just sort of status quo. This is how it always has been and always will be. And then this is really driven by this idea that we must innovate or our competition eventually will. And to that effect is we actually don't keep too close of an idea on our competition as much as more we're extremely focused on the customer and highly focused on how we can meet their needs and how can we just best ourselves constantly. And we have this belief also that we must fail until success is the only remaining option. And so in engineering, it's squeezing out that failure, again, just trying to make it less wrong. And even to market, so how we do marketing or how we communicate with our customers, that same mentality. And then how do we execute here is we try to set goals and milestones and deadlines so bold that they require inspiration and just determination to achieve. And also, if we're not experiencing failure, then we're probably not pushing hard enough. Another principle we do here is we treat everything like software. We're constantly going under revision. We're versioning everything. Our battery designs, our processes, our marketing strategies, everything is version 5, version 6, version 7. We're documenting what our strategy is, and then we're quickly changing to a new version, exploring new possibilities, how that strategy might work. Another principle we believe strongly in is good questions are more important than good answers. You can find an answer to everything, but good questions, the question that's going to actually solve the problem, that's actually more important, because then spending the resources to answer those questions or get those answers is always a good return. Another principle we do is we make sure to have a person or a team with the autonomy and authority to explore opportunities and future ideas without any punishment for failure and only rewarding results. This just makes that freedom to pursue those and see where these opportunities can take us. Really makes those that path or that process so fluid. I would say also that we try to reduce our costs of innovation by everything is a pilot program. So we take one thing through the whole process. We're trying to learn through that process. And we're also trying to make those tests that we're doing really focused on validating the assumptions that we made to begin that test. I would also say too is we assume that all of our stations, we have more laptops and desktops. Many of our tables are not screwed to the wall or they have wheels on them. This idea of just constant fluidity, so we can change and move our manufacturing to adapt to the product need or to our manufacturing need. For example, if you had an idea to improve a certain manufacturing process, how that might if you want to execute on that, but that could change your manufacturing line flow. If all your processes and autonomy is rigid and locked, then that's going to make you anxious to make those kind of changes. And so having those things flexible means you can execute on an idea without the concern of interrupting your flow. So those kind of things, for example. But in the end, innovation is something that we've just assumed as being just like our partner. It's like one of our business partners. And that constant pushing ourselves to be better has made our team really adaptable and has allowed us to survive the recent market environments that we're all struggling with. All right, that's all I had today. Thank you so much for your time. Of course, I'd like to pass it back to Jay and we'll go from there. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thanks, Trent. Thanks, Zach and Trent. That was awesome, Trent. I love that, Zach, that you were coming to us from the INL trade show over there. That was fantastic. And Trent, it's great to see. I've been in your facility there in Pocatello, and it is fantastic what you do. I really like the idea of the most important thing is asking good questions and the right questions and figuring those out so you can find the right answers. So wonderful job. Okay, we're near the end of our Vision Idaho 2023, and now Paul won from National Intelligence won the last $100 Apple gift card. Who wants to win the second one? Well, it's coming up right now. Let's go ahead and go to our last giveaway here today. And now let's go ahead and spin it and find out who won another Apple $100 gift card, courtesy of the ITC and its sponsors. Kevin Brune. Kevin, congratulations for that. Let's hear it for Kevin. Yes, I know, Carmen Archibald, I know you wanted to win that. I know we should give it to you. Dang it! So we'll have to do something next time. But anyway, thank you all. We've had well over 100 people on the call with us today. I wanted to tell you just a couple things as I get just thanking Jason Stohlworthy, INL, Roger Hall, who does leadership building, who does a wonderful job. Stu Draper with Stukent was great. David Kaplan at Micron, man, did you learn a lot from that? Molly Kocialski, U.S. Patent Office, Rocky Mountain Region. Thanks, Molly. Brad Frazer with Hawley Troxell. Marty Blair for Idaho State University. Nancy Glenn with Boise State University. Arch Harner with University of Idaho. And, of course, Zach Adams with Pitch Aeronautics and Trent Clawson, TitanPower. We had people that are doing extraordinary things, and the connectivity they have, the university to iGEM to all these other type of things. It's amazing what's happening. But our key, the key that was brought, I think that David Kaplan talked about, I still go back to this transforming how the world uses information to enrich life for all. If we bring these type of things and continue to connect it for us, that would be fantastic. Just as about the knowledge report, watch for it. It's going to be announced. We'll send it out to everybody that's participating on it so you can get online and get it on our website, the IdahoTechCouncil.org website. I'll end with just two quick thoughts. Albert Einstein said this: if we knew what we are doing, it would not be called research, would it? So, that's what research is about, trying to figure out new things. And then Neil Armstrong, one of the best astronauts, biggest astronauts in U.S. history, walking on the moon and so forth, he said research is creating new knowledge. So everything we do in life is let's find out ways to be able to create new knowledge and be able to get more from the fantastic thing that's taken place with innovation in our state. After all, if we don't innovate, what do we do? So check it out again. Idaho Knowledge Report will be out soon. Thanks to all of our sponsors, Idaho, the ICCU, Idaho Central Credit Union, Idaho National Laboratory, Stukent, C3O Marketing, and Idaho Department of Labor. Thank you so much. Have a great time and be safe out there. Thank you.